And welcome back to the hottest marriage show in our neighborhood. This is John
Kanika.
and we are doing Too Much Podcast, where we talk about things that happen in our house, and hopefully you can use it to get better somehow, because we believe if somebody had some information that could help us, we would listen to it also.
You'd hope.
Well, in this place I am. I have nobody's recommended any podcast. Well, they have, and I just felt like they were going in places I just didn't want to go into. I only care about literally self-improvement of our relationship, and sometimes they just be talking about stuff that I don't want to sift through the conversations to get to. I just want them to start talking how ways to get better. And right now, it's people want to cover so much, so they want to be interesting, and I just don't really have time to find out.
We don't care about being interesting. We just want to tell you what we want to tell you.
No, I'm saying the interesting part is what's going on currently,
Yeah.
and they want to talk about it and describe their opinion as if it's going to make them better people. But anyways, yeah. So, I was thinking, you just said something. You were like, I want to be the type of auntie of this, and you did that. And I was like, I wish I would have had an example of how to be a cool uncle where I could give information and my nieces and nephews would be able to come to me like, what do you think about this? And if they needed something, it was like my uncle would give me this, and without me feeling a certain type of way, without taking advantage of me. And when I say that, I mean okay, so let's say if I was rich, are you only asking me because I'm rich, or you don't have any other options, or I'm not gonna have you go sell drugs or anything, but he was like, you know what, he would think this was something he would want me to ask him for. He wouldn't want me to do this without saying, hey uncle, I know you got this. So it's like where there's a respect level because I'm your uncle. He was like, he would do this for me because he knows how I feel about this.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to be that uncle. And I hate that I'm trying to be this father and this husband, and I don't know how to be these other titles that could ultimately help my nieces and nephews prosper in a different light. Because I look at the way that I look at aunts and uncles, it's just it's so minuscule on the grand scheme of things. I grew up with one aunt, and that was an hour away, 45 minutes to an hour away at the time. And then I grew up with two uncles for about, I guess from 7th or 8th grade until my junior year. But that was 4 years, and we didn't really have that relationship. I didn't see them but once a year, if any. And then I had, that was the Korean side. So the black side, I saw them once a year because we didn't even live in the same state. Mm-hmm. So I just didn't know what it was supposed to look like. I just was literally creating the idea of what an aunt and uncle look like off television. And I just never had that. So that's what I was really trying to be for Connie's kids. As I wanted to be that person, but it kind of morphed into the father figure, and it hurt me. It hurts me now to think that I've disturbed a relationship because I didn't know. I'm gonna have to go through something where it's Uncle John, you could have done this, you could have done that. And I'm gonna have to tell him, hey, I really didn't know, And I'm hopefully they'll understand, and he really didn't know, Because I don't want them to be mad at me he see us struggling or he see me struggling. Why would he allow me? I'm I love you guys, but I'm just an uncle. Maybe they wouldn't even look at it like that. Maybe I just looked at it that way because I felt like that's how they're supposed to look at it. And, I guess I'm looking at the most negative possible way. And I just want them to, when we grow up, it was you was a really good uncle. I don't want them to be why didn't you do this?
When I grew up, my aunts and uncles on either side, there was no expectation of them like supplementing for my parent as being another place to go. So I wouldn't even.
See, that's what I'm
I
saying.
would. I would be like you. I'd be like I wouldn't know how to do that.
But see, this is what I'm saying. Like, you lived in a city with your aunts and uncles, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't have anything. So my perception of what an aunt and uncle was off of television and the very little interaction that I had with the ones that I had.
Like Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv type of aunt and uncle.
Oh no, I'm saying like whatever an aunt and uncle look like, like, oh, that's like that type of whatever that would look like. That's all I would think that. So I would just combine. Okay, this is what, but I didn't have any of that. So with me, I'm trying to look at a roundabout way of what I've seen. So I guess you could say like I was trying to be like all of these uncles,
that you see
father figure type, Uncle Phil type.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So it was like, I don't know what that's created.
So how much responsibility do our aunts and uncles supposed to take in the upbringing of their nieces and nephews?
Well, now I realize that they shouldn't take any responsibility in any of it unless it's not affecting their household. Like if you got things in order where like nothing skips a beat, you can help out. But if it takes any stress and it can reduce and lower you, I feel like you got to know when it's affecting you in your family. So I feel like if you can help, you can help. But before, like I was like, we got to do it. I was taught like, you got to hold down family no matter what, if family's right here. And I get that, but I didn't know what it was supposed to look like. So I was just doing the best I could. And the best I could wasn't good enough. So I just realized that I had to back up. Like, I can't be that person because that wasn't working. So I was like, I got to do a different route. But in the meantime, let me improve my family. And then maybe I could lead by example. And it's like, I like the way John looks. I like the way he sounds when I talk to him. They can be like, oh, what is he doing? So I just feel like all I can do now is just make sure that my family is happy. So the example is like, you know what? I want to be like my Uncle John because he took care of his family and he did what he could with us. But, so that's what it looks like now. But before it was more active, hands-on, one in the credit without being said, like without me saying, I'm like, look, where would we really be? In my head, I'm like, I'm doing everything I can, but you talking to me like I could do more. And that's when you feel like your work is not appreciated and it's from people that you think is supposed to know you the best, that's when you don't know anything. You don't know the person or the people that you think you're providing or helping out, supporting in any way. It's like, dang, maybe I'm too close to the elephant. And I got to back up. Okay, let me dust myself off. I'm fighting this fight I ain't even supposed to be in.
Yeah, I hear you on that one.
Yeah.
Fighting the fight you're not supposed to be
in. Yeah, so the idea of what I think about a man, and you hear about these hidden messages, you get these hidden messages of man supposed to do this, if you're a father and you're doing this, it's like, how can you help somebody when you still trying to get yourself in a position to help? But when you hurting and you start to help other people, you start to hurt more. And a lot of people just get caught up in that cycle. And like, I would say this, looking at the role that you've played in my family, you helped me become a better uncle and a better brother. In the very beginning, in my head, I was just like, we got to help my family. But you had like a particular what it was supposed to look like. And I didn't see what it was supposed to look like. To me, I just felt like it was going to figure itself out.
John loves figure it out.
For real. Like, I feel like, nobody's going to die. As long as everybody's playing their role, things will get better. But then you realize that everybody don't have the same intent as you. Or they don't know how to get on the path that you're on, where you feel like if you're doing this, but apparently whatever I was doing wasn't influential enough to... No, maybe I just was, I don't know.
But you know what I found, and I learned that this week in listening. I have a cousin that I feel the same way about. Like, I want to help. But what I figured out is that you can't look at what they're saying and then decide what the best route is and then give them the game plan and they run with it. It has to be a shared understanding of what's important and a shared like vision of how to get out of here. They got to understand where you're going and buy into it for it to really work. And I think it was frustrating because there are plans that you could set up for, like, you see a family member in distress and then you say, okay, let's think through how to fix this. We just got to do X, Y, and Z. And then you tell them, look, all you got to do is X, Y, and Z, and then everything will start to fall into place. They're living in a world where it's not they don't understand that to be the solution.
They're not at X yet.
Yeah. And I was telling John, I said, I feel like the world is on fire and we got to make decisions to get things done. And he was like, but is their world on fire, or just if it were you, your world would be on fire? And that is something different too. It's like some people live in chaos. And so when things look chaotic to me, it looks like every day this and that to them. So when I'm like, we need to get into crisis mode and get some of these things taken care of, I'm thinking differently than them. And I'm putting more importance or weight on this than even they are. And it's weird to me. But you got to figure out where those people are. You got like it's only important if it's important to them. You trying to help people and they're not even stressed.
That ain't even their importance level.
No.
Like that level of emergency is different.
Yeah. And so the whole idea of being the aunt or uncle that helps, or family member that helps, because you're just supposed to help your family. You got to figure out, okay, so first of all, are you willing to help them in the way that they think is important? And are y'all looking at it the same way? Because sometimes, family feels like all you got to do is give me this and then I'll be straight. And then you're looking at it, you're like, no, because in 3 more weeks, this is going to happen and it's going to be the same story. All I got to do is do this. Instead of putting Band-Aids on it, let's do some long-term fixing of the situation rather than just the short term. And if you're going into it thinking differently, nothing's going to get done. So how can you really help somebody when y'all don't, like, you're going to try to solve their problem with your own solution and they're not going to buy into it? It's not going to work.
Yeah. I think with what you just said, as far as you coming up with a solution for somebody, it would work if they were at right before X.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know my alphabet. Whatever's before X. So
W.
So
W.
so my point is, it's like XYZ only works as if you're at W. Mm-hmm. So if they're at M, like that looks completely foreign. It was like, you keep saying XYZ, but I don't even know how to get there. So it's like, and you then in your mind, you're like, I'm not about to handhold this person. I'm giving you the most it ain't that basic. Because if it was basic, they would be able to thank you. You know what? I had no idea. And then you see that it didn't work. And he was like, why aren't they doing this? And it's like, nobody wants to not win. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, to me, it made me look in a different way. Like, we are all in a race, but we're at different parts of the race. And some people may not make it to whatever part, but unless we're willing to, I guess, create those community centers and build a community where we could all learn from each other and remove some of these distractions, we're going to see people just fall by the wayside because we're talking a different language.
Yeah, and it's so interesting when you said you're thinking that somebody's a W and they're an M. You never really know all of the different things that are interacting that have led to this person getting here, all the different things that they're juggling. You can only see what you can see. Like, nobody knows everything that we're juggling in this family. They only see what they see. I remember growing up, and when my parents were getting a divorce, there was a cousin, and she was running her mouth talking about, because my parents were really good at handling business, and it looked like everything ran smooth. It didn't mean that it was a marriage. It meant that it was a partnership, that everybody understood their role and they did what they needed to do. But it wasn't like the relationship that one would want to have for their lives, you know. And so the cousin, she was talking about, you know, to her, it looked like what she would love to have. But you didn't know all the stuff that was going on in the background that, you know, people were able to operate, and it looked like stellar to you in comparison to where you were. But at where they were, there were other factors that just were not being taken care of. And so it really, you saying that and then me thinking up to that point, or in my own experience, it's true. You don't know everything you think you know. This is simple. All you got to do is do this. Mm-hmm. But it's not always simple.
It isn't, because, you know, I was just thinking, even between you and I, there are things that we just don't say out loud to know.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, if we're still learning each other, how can we give somebody else some information if we don't even reveal everything to each other? So it's like, whenever we're talking to somebody outside of this household, we are getting the smallest fraction of their life.
Yeah.
And we're trying to make up for everything else to say these things occurred. But even between you and I, even though we have more fractions, there are fractions that we don't have, and what we're thinking about outside of each other that we just don't know to say.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's too difficult to help people if you don't completely know what the problem is. And typically people want to use finances as the scapegoat to, like, if I had this, I could do it. You're right. You can buy yourself some time, but you're still going to have to deal with the problem on why you got there.
Yeah.
You know, that's the reason why people, they get a lot of money, they never understood how to handle money. But, you know, if you're in a place where you understand money, it's a lot more stability in the household. Money's not that, you don't have money to learn about it. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, you got to go through those hard growing pains until somebody in your family says, you know what, we're going to have to this is where it's going to start. We're going to learn these things so that when our kids do get to this age, they have enough information to be successful versus, I hope they figure it out. You know? So that's the way I feel. What's wrong?
Nothing. I'm just thinking about the different family members that, you know, they've struggled, and there are so many things in the background running, so many programs in the background that are running that people are not aware of, and you think you have the solution and you just don't. And then it's like, when people don't take your solution or your answer, then there's that resentment, like, oh, so you don't really want no help then. You don't really want that. No.
Make it really difficult for them to ask for help because they believe that people look at it this way. You know, like, I was just thinking, like, I don't want to talk about that. But, so I remember when, like, Day, recently this week, she was, you know, she got locked out the school building, and her phone wasn't calling out, and she didn't know what to do. And I asked Day, I said, why didn't you ask somebody to use their phone? And I said, hey, if somebody came up to you and said, hey, my phone's not working and I'm locked out of the school building and I missed the bus, can I use your phone? Would you let them use it? She said, of course. And I was like, why do you think that somebody wouldn't do that? She said, I didn't think about that. And I was like, if you don't know what to do, you kind of just like, it's like, you know, those social skills where you feel like if you were a social person, you can know, like, you would know some people. So it's not like you got to go introduce yourself to a complete stranger. But if you're not social, everybody are strangers. Mm-hmm. So you don't have the skill to say, hey, I lost my phone. And, you know, it's just like those parenting things to remind yourself that, hey, it's so many things, so many rules that we just don't know.
So she was at M and we thought she was at W.
Yeah. Exactly. So the XYZ works for everybody. And you know, who would ever think? Would you ever think that, like?
No, I think that gives the conversation about common sense. You remember when people be like, you don't have no common sense, or they don't have no common sense. Mm-hmm. But the discussion was like, your common sense is only as far as your experiences. And every time you have like common sense looks different depending on what region or neighborhood you grew up in,
Who raised you?
The experiences you've had, and every day you're building onto your common sense. The things that you don't even have to think about, it's just stuff you know, and situations where you know how to handle it. Like Day hasn't ridden a bus. Well, she's ridden a bus to school recently, but so recently she wasn't paying attention, and she missed her stop. Now, mind you, her brother got off, but she didn't get off. And so she calls and she's like, I'm on the bus and I don't even know where I'm going, because she doesn't pay attention to what direction she's going in. And so it took a minute. Look, I'm going to tell y'all how dumb I am. So I'm like, oh my God, this is how technology had me all messed up. So I'm like talking to Dallas, like, oh my goodness, where is she going? Do you even know where the route is? And he was like, I don't know. He was like, so we get in the car. Dallas is riding with me. And I said, Day, do you know how to put your location on your phone? And she was like, I don't know. So I'm trying to direct her, and Dallas was like, Mother. And I was like, wait, hold on, Dallas. And I was like going through WhatsApp, trying to help her to put on her location, going through Google Maps, trying to help her put on her location or find where she is. Dallas said, Day, can you walk to a street sign and tell us what the street names are? I was like...
She was already off the bus?
She was already out, because when she got on there, I said, get off of the bus. So she didn't go further and further from the house. And so she got off the bus and I said, stay there. Now tell me your location. And Dallas is like, Day, just walk to the next street sign and tell us what the street names are. So she tells us and we go there. But it built on, like, it made me realize that now I depend too much. I don't even use common sense at this point, because I'm depending on technology to help me find my child.
So, and you heard what she just said. So when I find this information, guess what I say? Hey, Day, why didn't you tell the bus driver that you passed my stop up? And Kanika's like, why would you do it? I'm like, this is his job. He's got to make sure everybody on that bus this is his job.
But that's common sense to you as an educator.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
no, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, in my head, I'm like, I know that. But if my wife didn't know and they didn't know, and I'm like, wow, because that bus driver should have known, hey, this is not your stop.
When she got on.
Yeah.
First of all, because they see them get on every day and we're standing there with dogs and we wave and all that other stuff. But the other part of it is Day's common sense developed further that day.
It did.
And when so then she realized, oh, well, I need to tell the bus driver that I missed my stop. Or if she's on like a city bus, then she wouldn't know to get off, cross the street, and then get back on the bus, and then you could get, ask for a transfer and go back. You know what I'm saying? So common sense is what's common to you. I've heard that saying before, but also I think it was interesting because you grew up with people constantly telling you didn't have any common sense. Yeah.
So that often, just imagine, okay, you have a younger sister and a father. So my mother is gone at this point. And you hear, my mother was here. I heard that too. Like, so my father used to always say I didn't have any common sense. And as I got and become an adult, I find out that my sister and my father are like, they have this relationship. And you think like, they looked at life differently than I did. And I realized that I did not understand the life they were living. So he thought I didn't have any common sense on whatever life that they were living. Mm-hmm. And whatever my ignorance was protected me, because if I did understand, I probably would have taken a complete different route. Because if your father is telling you have no common sense and you have a kid that's watching and you understand what he's talking about, she's going to believe in the father know what he's talking about. And my father didn't know what he was talking about.
So their common sense would help them navigate street life more so.
Correct.
But their common sense would not help them in navigating the life that you were living, or like the life we're living now. They wouldn't know how to navigate as well with their common sense as we do now.
Correct.
So it's not only age, but it's the environment, perspective, who you deal with. But all of those things impact what common sense is.
But I don't understand why I missed it.
Yeah. I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't. And you know, that's interesting when people sit there and they say, it's like y'all didn't even live in the same household. Like when I think about, I know my younger brother, he was a lot more wild than me, and he definitely saw more than me. So he would definitely know how to navigate situations more. I navigate situations by looking like what's the most dangerous. He used to navigate situations and he was much more relaxed because he had been around those dangerous situations and he was familiar with people, and so he understood. My older brother might have been similar to that. I don't know. But in general, we all understood the same thing as far as how our parents set up the world. So we all had that general baseline common sense, but they had a little bit added on top in different areas. With you and your family, when you describe it, it's like you lived in a whole different world than everybody else in your house.
I did. My mother was gone all the time because she worked, and my father was like, he was home in the evening because he worked in the day. And, you know, just looking back, I just don't understand how I missed the information that he was teaching. And I think I was just so selfish. So remember I told you he said I was cold-hearted and selfish. So I think I was just selfish, so selfish that I didn't care about anybody else's ideas or anything. I was like, I can't live like this anymore. And I kind of just, I got to do this, and this to get here. And I didn't allow the things around me, because I'm telling you, when he told me he said, you're going to be a businessman because all you want to do is people over. You're so cold-hearted. And I'm like, what? I didn't understand. But I understand what he means, because I really didn't care about too much. If it didn't have anything to do with me, I didn't pay attention. So if I'm walking in a house, I'll give you an example. So my mother left. My father ended up becoming a very attractive man because he was raising kids, and women thought you got to be a good man to be raising your kids. So he used to have multiple women. He ended up getting in a relationship with a young lady, very nice lady. I love her kids. They're grown women now, but I love them. Developed a great relationship, and they broke up, and he started having multiple women. And I remember I came in the door, and I said, hi, such and such, and I walked to the back. Then I walked back outside. By the time I walked outside and the time I got back, it was a different woman in there. And I did not know that. And I just walked back in because I already spoke. So I went into the room, and my dad said, what's wrong with you? You ain't got no manners? And I came back out, and I was like, oh, I thought it was such and such. I just walked. So
right
now, mind you, I go back in my room. She leaves. He come in my room, and he punched me in my head with his knuckle. Oh, you think you could just call out motherfucking names? Just wait till your women come over here. And I was like, what the heck? Like, I didn't know that. He was like, you didn't open your, because I wasn't looking. And it was like, I don't have common sense because I'm not paying attention to my surroundings. Look, I had a focus, and he wasn't a part of it. And neither was anybody else at the time. It was like, look, if you want to live this life, it's cool. And I didn't have a problem with it. It was just, he wanted me to care more about it than I really wanted to put time into. So the common sense for me was, look, I'm just going to try to stay as focused as possible because this is not the life I'm supposed to live. Yeah. So, like just thinking about common sense only helps you navigate the land or the area that you're in right now. And like you said, the more places you go, you develop a broader sense of common sense on how to navigate no matter where you are. And I think that's awesome because we've allowed the kids to experience so many different things, where I feel like as introverted as they are now, when they become adults, the navigation of becoming friends and all of that will be a lot easier because they'll know how to talk to people in different parts of their life because of as much as they've seen.
Yeah. However, they're much like you in that they don't really pay attention to much of anything doesn't have to do with them. If it don't have to do with them specifically, they do not pay attention to things that are going on around them.
They don't. Like, what's crazy is that Day in Dallas will say, "Hey, that person's in my class, I think." You don't know everybody in your class yet.
Be like, what's their name? I don't know.
That like it's unheard of, because I remember, just to introduce yourself the first day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know when it stopped, but at one point it was like you would want to learn everybody's name.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just got to the point, listening to these kids, they were like, well, they're not really they're just in the class that I'm in.
Yeah.
The idea that you don't know everybody in your class is unheard of to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I can't understand that. And, I think it's safe anyway. At least the people that you end up bringing into your circle, you vetted enough. Mm-hmm. Where at least if you show a level of vulnerability to them, that they won't stomp you. I guess they had to learn that last year.
Oh.
Just how, how girls can be at that age.
Mm-hmm. But hey, this is the other thing. So Day has a cousin that goes to her school now, and she came from a completely different environment than Day, and her common sense looks different. So I remember one day I was taking my younger cousin home, and she said, "Nika, there's somebody that's Day's friend, and I don't know her name, but she was trying to describe her to me, and she said she's not a good person. Like, Day shouldn't be around her. She's not a good person." And I'm like, golly, who is this person? So she's describing the person, and I didn't know, like, she was describing her physically. I never knew what this friend looked like. So that was in the spring. She had only been at the school for like a few weeks, and she was like,
she already knew that
she
quick.
already knew that wasn't somebody Day should be around. So then about a month later, there was this big blow up with this person. And Day, the one beautiful thing about Day is if you show yourself to be somebody that is mean or whatever, she won't deal with you. And it don't matter if she get down to 0 friends, she will not mess around with you anymore. And so this particular person was really mean to her in a class, and it made Day feel really uncomfortable. And there was another friend with her, and that other friend wasn't saying anything, but she also wasn't helping the situation. And so Day was like, okay, well, I'm good with them. Later on, the girls approached her again, and Day was like, no, I'm good. So this year, I was asking her about them, and in a conversation with Anaya, I realized, my younger cousin, I realized that who Anaya was talking about and who Day had a run-in with were the same person.
Yeah.
And so Anaya saw in a couple of weeks what Day hadn't seen all school year until that blow up. And so even in judging people, Darius. So I think we talked about this before, where there was a woman in our neighborhood, and she had approached Day and Darius while they were outside, and when she started talking, Darius said, "Day, let's go," and he's dragging her, and Day is like, she's telling me the story. She said she was a nice woman. She was talking, and Darius told me I had to go. He said because she was on drugs, and Day was like, and when I saw her from afar, I'm like, why would he say that? Well, later on, John was with me, and he saw her, and he was like, oh, yeah, definitely. Because Darius understands what it looks like. And they, so my kids didn't even know to be afraid of her. But Darius is like, we ain't even going to interact.
You didn't have to, that's what you're taught to stay away. Like, you don't necessarily have to be afraid, but you need to be aware that this person is not sober.
It wasn't because of that. It was because the woman said she saw them on bikes, and she said, oh, I have a bike that's bigger that you can have. Do you want to go? If you come to my apartment, we can go in my storage room and I'll get it for you. And Darius is like, let's go
for sure.
Yeah. So the situation was all right until she was trying to get them to go somewhere else. And then he was like, oh, no, we ain't doing that. Now, Day didn't know to not feel that way. Yeah. And I think we talked about that before, but it's common sense. Is common to...
Those is common to your experience, whatever. But so that's crazy. Like the idea that you can miss messages, you can miss bad messages by not having the common sense.
Yeah, you definitely miss bad messages.
Or you could get some bad messages and miss the good ones too.
Yeah.
You know, so I guess it just depends on, you know, who's protecting you, who's supposed to be protecting you at least, and how much they think they know, because they could definitely put you in a bad situation and not even know it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Anybody you want to give a shout out before we get out of here?
I don't have anybody today.
I want to give a shout out to HBCUs. I feel like in the upcoming years, we're going to see a strong sense of populated schools where people are going to go. I feel like the entertainment aspect of what we're seeing through the sports and people setting the example is going to be awesome, because if you think about it, when the story's written 100 years from now, there's going to be a large group of kids that African Americans, I told you, we're going to figure out that there's a lot more information that they just don't have in PWIs, predominantly white institutions, because they don't feel that the information that we have is that important. So once we learn more information, we can know more about where we came from and why we're so resilient in times of the most difficult ideas of madness, because it's some of the things that we've gone through repeatedly over and over it's unbearable. So shout out to HBCUs, because I believe in you guys, and I'm going to do my best to participate in pushing this movement, because, you know, we were just trying to assimilate into the society and they just kept putting things in front of us. So y'all keep holding it down, and I promise when things turn around and we become financially abundant, we're going to be a part of all of that. For real. And happy homecoming season to y'all, and it's homecoming for us too at Michigan State. Shout out to Michigan State too. I really believed in them because they believed in me, even though I was paying my money to get this education. And they still looking for it. But go green.
Go white.
Y'all be great on purpose. Boom.